Good day, Malaysia, and welcome to another edition of The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam, and today what we're going to do is delve into something which is interesting yet frightening at the same time. We're going to be talking a little bit about MIC, the future of MIC, and the problems they're facing right now. Of course, I'd like to clearly state that we're not going to berate anyone, or we're not going to belittle anyone. Neither am I going to act like I am a political analyst. I'm going to be like you and try to get as much information as I can to wrap our heads around the situation and better understand the situation. And also something that's very much linked to this is leadership. We're going to be talking about leadership and what you need to be, what it takes to be a leader, the qualities of a leader, so on and so forth. We'll be talking about that. And joining me in the studio once again, we've had him here some time ago. He's back again. Neela Mehan, who's a lecturer with UPM. He's a political analyst and he's also a leadership consultant. He's come back to join us today at The Nation to discuss certain issues about MIC and to also talk about leadership. Neela, a very good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Well, it's great to have you back. What have you been doing? What have you been up to as of late?
Good morning, Jared, and good morning, viewers. After last time I was here, I rejoined UPM. I'm working as a lecturer in the Faculty of Economics and Management.
Right.
Also as a leadership consultant and leadership training. And thanks for inviting me again.
Always a pleasure to have you here. You're always a breath of fresh air. You always give us great insights, and that's what we want to talk about today. Well, before we talk about leadership, I've got some nice quotes here about leadership, thanks to our producer Viswa. He's put together some quotes from Nelson Mandela, just so we're not lost as to what a leader is meant to do or what he or she needs to be. Well, we want to talk about the scenario or the current scenario within MIC before moving into leadership. So with the current scenario, what can you tell us? What's the situation? And let's talk about the narrative, the ongoing narrative. Where does it stem from?
Okay. Currently, what MIC is facing, I would put it rather embarrassing situation.
Embarrassing situation.
Embarrassing situations. Because in the past, in the last 69 years, there were few leadership disputes, but not to the extent of a Register of Society stepping in, and also to the extent of nullifying the elections, and also with the challenge of the party could be deregistered. So that's a current scenario that we have. So the interesting part is what led to this point.
Right.
I think as in general, we should believe in the theory of causality. What causes what is happening right now? So what is happening right now in MIC is not something that you can look back in the past 1 or 2 months, but I think there's a long history behind it.
So when you say there's a long history behind it, of course, or whatever we see today comes from a long history of a certain culture within the way the party is run.
I don't think anything wrong with that culture of how the party was formed. I think the objective of the party is noble, and in the past they have contributed much to uplift the economic situation of the Indians, plus also the guardians of the Indian in Malaysia.
Right.
But I think lately, in the last 2 or 3 years, our Deputy Prime Minister aptly called MIC is in the position right now leaderless MIC, he called.
Right.
So
and this was said by the current deputy
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, sorry.
Yeah. So it is an embarrassment when there are elected leaders up there, yet one of your bosses is calling your party is almost like leaderless.
So when we look at this whole story, it started on the 5th of December. All this,
That's right.
what we're seeing today started on the 5th of December, and it started with the re-election of 3 VPs and 23 Central Working Committee members. And can you tell us the story?
What happened was the MIC election supposed to be in 2012. It was delayed to facilitate the national elections, 13th
general elections.
And then finally there was a lot of issues whether then the president of MIC, Dato Sri Sami Velu, who hand over the party to Dato Sri Palanivel, and whether anybody going to challenge him. So there's a lot of talk of then the deputy president, Dato Sri Subramaniam, wanting to challenge him, and there was a mediations. Prime Minister called both of them. There was a kind of gentleman agreement that Dato Sri Palanivel will step down in 2016, and Dr. Subra will take over MIC, and the rest of the positions will be contested. That's what happened, and 3 vice presidents won, as well as the 23 other Central Working Committee. What happened after that is the issue whereby the 2 of the vice presidents who lost, they contested. They were saying that there were irregularities. They made some complaints, as well as they also said that some of the appointment of the CWC members were illegal. It took about almost 6-7 months of investigation by ROS, and finally, after much thorough investigations, in December 5th, ROS came out with their recommendation saying that the 3 vice presidents election must be held again, and also the 23 Central Working Committee.
Right. So when they say the 3 vice presidents, the posts of 3 vice presidents and the Central Working Committee members, or the 23 of them to be exact, they need to be re-elected. And let's go back a little bit more and talk about the irregularities that they found. What do you think were these irregularities? Do we know, or is it still vague?
Well, based on the complaints made, practically one of the vice presidents was saying that during that first count he won, and he was called for the recount, and during the second recount he lost, and also there is disparity between the numbers counted during the first counting and the second counting. So that is one of the complaints.
It was a complaint, but there was there evidence to support that complaint? We don't know.
Nobody knows, because RAOS didn't mention what was the irregularities. They just come out with a letter asking MIC to re-elect their 3 vice presidents as well as the Central Working Committee. It shows that there must be some evidences, some basics why the complaints were made, and why ROS made such a decision.
Okay, then after that, so when ROS came up with the decision, they said a re-election, there needs to be a re-election. What happened subsequently?
Okay, you see, together with that notice, they also said that if MIC didn't take any actions, MIC could be deregistered within the next 90 days. So that was the big challenge, because never before MIC faced such predicament. Then people and the party members, as also the losing parties, they were pushing the president to make any actions, but no action was taken until December 18th. The president, Dato Sri Palanivel, called for a meeting, and together with the deputy president, and they discussed and they announced that he and the deputy president will meet up with ROS seeking for clarifications. I thought they bought some time then. But what happened after that, the president actually went to see ROS without the deputy president on the December 24th,
so
seeking for
he went to meet the ROS without the deputy president, and then that's
the letter was sent. The letter was sent without this deputy president, and deputy president as well as one of the vice president, Datuk Saravanan, and when they were asked, they were saying that they knew nothing about what's happening in MIC, and they were saying that we don't know what is the next course of actions must be taken by MIC. So they were in the dark as well.
So while all this was happening, what we got to see on TV was a lot of footage of chaos outside the MIC building. You know, I mean, just images people don't want to see, and you know, it puts MIC in a very negative light, and the way they're being portrayed. But looking at this problem and how it's standing now, when we go back into the history of MIC, have we had problems anywhere close to what we have today?
No, not
at all.
Not at all. Tun Mahathir yesterday mentioned that MIC always had an internal problem, and he was, I hope that he was sarcastic, but he was saying that they always needed a third party to solve their problem. So that's, and again, as I mentioned, that's an embarrassing situation.
Right. So now, with the current situation, is there a rift among the leaders? I mean, there is a rift among the leaders. Now, who's saying what, and what do the people need to know about?
Okay.
What do we need to know about this?
As at the current situations now, yes, there was a lot of issues. There was a moratorium implemented, and the Prime Minister was saying that nobody speak until they come and see me. But the President, yesterday, they met the Prime Minister together with the Deputy Prime Minister and also the Home Minister, together with Dr. S. Subramaniam. There was a decision made right now. There will be complete re-elections from the post of President to the CWC members will be held by June.
Right.
So you are asking whether there is a rift. Obviously there is a huge rift, but the question is that now, is that a rift between the President and the Deputy Presidents, or the top three people, the President, the Deputy President, and one of the Vice Presidents?
Right.
Are they going to get together to solve the problem, or they are going to go for each other's throats?
Right. So if we are unclear, as a political analyst, do you at least see, who's on whose side? Because if we can't see this, I'm sure that the people or the general public will be finding it hard to know what's what.
It's an interesting scenario, right? The day before yesterday, the scenario was different. It seems like the presidents against the Deputy Presidents and Vice Presidents. They seems to be in the same team. They were going around the nationwide tour, and they were explaining. They were seeking for some kind of reaction from the presidents. So it was looking like as if the presidents against these two gentlemen. But immediately after the announcement that the MIC will hold fresh re-elections, and one of the Vice President, Dr. Saravanan, he is saying that he is contemplating going for presidency. So now, in
the
a
Vice
logical
President is contemplating,
and he says that he has got about 1,500 supporters, and another 500 to go for it. And the scenario is this: that puts Dr. Subramaniam as the current Deputy President, who was contemplating to become the next president. What is his action going to be? So it is not the rift between the top two. I think right now it's going to be the top three.
So it's going to be the top three, and of course younger blood always wants a chance to
obviously
to succeed and show what they're made of.
Exactly.
So at this point, is there any way that the Prime Minister can step in and say, look, it's not going to happen this way, saying if there's a takeover of some sort? Can Barisan Nasional step in and say, look, we don't want this sort of a takeover, we want it to be this way? Can Barisan Nasional draw out a sort of a roadmap as to what they want to see happen with the party? Okay,
as far as in the spirit of Barisan Nasional, there is always an understanding that no party should involve in another party's internal affair. So that's obviously that other component parties, they won't be commenting on what is happening. But it is unavoidable now. The Prime Minister, as also the chairman of the Barisan Nasional, should step in, as well as the Deputy Prime Minister, because a weakened MIC also lead to weakening of the Barisan Nasional in general.
Right.
So right now, PM is already mentioned that let's follow the suggestion to have re-elections. But the question remains whether this will be allowed by ROS, because ROS suggestions earlier is only go for the 3 Vice Presidents re-election and CWC members, not the entire. So are we saying that the entire elections that took place in 2013 is illegal?
That's a question we need to ask ourselves. Also, we'll come back and find out about the leadership within MIC then and now. I don't know if we can talk about that.
Sure.
Maybe you can walk us through the leadership then and now. What difference has it made? Of course, when we talk about difference has it made, for whom? The people or the Indian community within Malaysia. Well, we'll come back and find out more about that shortly right here at The Nation.
Headlines, illuminating visuals, everything right and now on Bernama News.
Eyeing on the world news, international arts, culture and global economy. get insights on some of the most important events and happenings across the continent with Global Today, 10:30 a.m. from Monday to Friday.
Start your day with Bernama Today. News updates, live discussions, sports and entertainment. Don't forget to watch us on Bernama TV, Monday to Friday, 8 to 9 in the morning.
Welcome back to The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam, and we're currently talking about the problems within MIC. We're also talking about leadership and leadership traits or something a leader needs to have. It's always been documented and well archived as to the great leaders we have in the world and the traits they have and the good qualities they have. So we're going to find out a little bit more about that later. But in the meantime, let's talk about the problems within MIC and the way forward for MIC. Well, once again, let's walk through the developments, the latest developments. The Deputy PM has raised his concern on leaderless MIC. The PM himself, what did he say? Yeah?
PM said that MIC should regain his strength by what he called holding the fort together.
Right.
He said he's very worried that what's happening in MIC eventually will weaken Barisan Nasional itself.
And the Home Minister also said that he wants to meet with the MIC leaders.
Exactly.
So these are the latest developments.
And they have met now.
They've met, yeah. And of course they'll be holding fresh elections for all positions. That's going to be happening very soon, apparently June 2015, and this is not going to be auguring well for some of them within that. Now the problem with something like this is everyone will be jumping from one camp to the other. No, exactly. Everyone has got, when it comes to this, what's the main objective? The main objective, integrity of course steps in with this. But the thing here also is, what's in it for me? A lot of people would be asking whether it's from down to the top or top bottom. Everyone wants to know what's in it for me. So, how do you see this playing out from here on end?
It's as you said, it's so important. What's in it for me is the question of the day, because the appointment in the government comes with that positions in that party. I think it works in Barisan Nasional such a way. So you are not going to get any appointment in the government unless you are holding senior positions in that party. That's how the ministerships as well as the deputy ministerships will be decided upon. As you asked whether this problem is as at today or you have to look back to the past, I think this is the greatest opportunity of that to Datuk Sri Palanivel, because he always seen as the protege of Datuk Sri as Sami Velu, who hold the fort for almost 3 decades. Not many people know any other president of MIC other than himself. All right. Then he actually hand over the party to Datuk Sri as Palanivel. Then in 2013 there was no contest. So I hope this will be an opportunity for Datuk Sri Palanivel to step up and claim his position rightfully by going for that leadership positions.
Claiming the position is one thing, doing it with strategy is another.
That's
of course,
exactly.
And that's something I want to talk about when we come back from the break. But in the meantime, let's take a look at leadership then and now. How much it has changed and the qualities of these two leaders.
Okay, it's interesting. I think it's very unfair to compare leaders from a different era. But in the context of MIC, we can look at the way that Dato Sri Samivelu run that party, very much in control. Many claims that lack of freedom to voice their opinion, but of course the CWC members always saying that they had an opportunity to raise that thing. But somehow in the last 30 years when Dato Sri Samivelu was the president, he always had the control of the party by what you call authoritarian rule, if you may call it. But come to Dato Sri Palanivel, there was a lot of openness. He wanted to create an opportunity for members to raise issues, and we heard that CWC meetings are rather open, that people can actually share their concerns. That was the main difference between these two presidents. But the complaint against our current president is that visibility. Leadership is all about being visible.
Right.
Being visible means being dependable. While Dato Sri Samivelu can be seen everywhere and his voice can be heard everywhere, every day. So the issue was Dato Sri Palanivel was rather quiet. His supporters were saying that he's a quiet man, but he's doing work quietly.
Right.
But people want to see their president. People want to hear the president. That was sorely lacking.
Right. So what was lacking? What you're saying, what I can understand from what you're saying is there was a lack of PR exercise as to if work was being done in the background, it should have been brought forward, and especially members of MIC should know what he's doing on a daily basis. So this is what's lacking at this point.
Definitely, it was an issue. One of the greatest leadership aspect is mentioned by Professor Max De Brie. He says the number one responsibility of a leader is to define reality. So that means tell the followers what it is. What it is right now.
If you could simplify that a little, elaborate on that a little bit more.
We will definitely do that. But the problem is most of the MIC members, also general public, they don't know what is happening in MIC.
Right.
So it was not being communicated at all.
But when you talk about the reality, isn't the reality meant to be what's happening on the ground? You know, the well-being of the people, you know, the economic status of the people, so on and so forth. Isn't that a barometer?
There are two ways of looking at it. What is the reality, as in what is happening in MIC, and also what is happening in that in general public, as particularly among the Indians. See, in psychology, there is a term called conditioned helplessness. That means a person already developed a mindset that he could not do much to help himself unless somebody helped him. So the Indians in Malaysia are already going into that mode of hoping that government or the political party will do something to change their life. So we are asking, I mean, we are almost how many years after independence, and MIC being proclaiming themselves as to be the sole representative. How can this scenario still persist when there is the progress of the nation? We have seen from Malaysia from 1970s to what we are today, and we also still with the goal of being a developed nation. But the Indian community still lacking of that economic empowerment. Why that is so? So that's what people are looking at it. You are there as our leaders, and what you have done so far to empower us. So that is exactly the scenario of the reality. The reality is that the Indians are still backwards, and they are still looking for opportunities, and they are looking for help from the government to help themselves.
When you say that they're still backwards, you know, they're finding it hard to move forward, and they're still looking for help. But with what we know, with the general population of the Indians and the problems that they're having, is anything being done about it? I mean, they've come up with Tekon. There are a lot of different initiatives, and I've had people from MIC, Mohana, and the lot of them come in here and talk about various initiatives that's being done within the Indian community. And is that enough?
Obviously, we cannot blame the government for not doing. I think ever since Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak took the government, he's shown some personal interest to the development of the Indians. But what I see, all the helps are in a piecemeal context. That means there is no systemic policies in place to help them. So what's happening now is that as and when there is an issue.
Right. What would be an example of a systemic
well, Indians are minority in the country, and Indians need help. So there is a need for the government to come out with some kind of affirmative actions, a plan for them, which is institutionalized, rather than they're helping in a piecemeal mode.
But if there's MIC there, isn't it the work of MIC to advise the government as to what needs to be done?
Precisely, that is the issue, why they didn't do it so far, why they must be actually hoping for, writing in for allocation for the national budget, rather than coming out with a blueprint for the affirmative actions that can uplift the entire Indian community, rather than helping for handouts.
Right. So instead of solving the problems through piecemeal, they should come up with a blueprint of some sort.
Precisely.
And has that even been attempted?
I think often in the past presidents, there's a lot of talk, there is all kind of blueprints. Sadly, I yet to come across any in a complete form.
Right. You're talking about leadership. You said you can't compare leadership then and now. Is it because of the landscape then and now? And if so, that leaders then were given a chance to take on the current landscape that we have now, well, would they be able to handle it, taking into consideration that today we have social media and TV and radio is so open compared to when I started. I started radio and TV in 1999, and what I could say back then and what I could say right now are two different worlds. The worlds apart. We can talk, we can discuss, we can debate a lot now. Was different then. Would a leader from back then be able to control things given the current landscape?
Well, it's again can be contested. If the leader take up the change himself to follow what the demands of the followers. As you are saying that the landscape has changed.
Right.
Sadly, the political landscape, the MIC, didn't change much. The system of their leaders who've been there for 18 years, they are still there, and there's a lack of opportunities for the younger leaders to step up. Matter of fact, there's a very appalling statement was made recently for MIC youth and MIC Wanita not to speak on the election of the president. They're saying that it's not the for the youth. And I said, if they are not allowed to speak on the presidency, and why they are there for? And you see, that kind of suppressing and oppressing movement is the one that not allowing the younger leaders to come front and to lead that party.
Well, we'll take another short break, and when we come back, we'll find out more about MIC and the way forward for MIC. We'll also be talking about things we need to know about a leader. What should a leader have for him or her to be a leader? Stay with us right here at The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam.
Start your day with Pranama Today. News updates, live discussions, sports and entertainment. Don't forget to watch us on Pranama TV, Monday to Friday, 8 to 9 in the morning.
Offering the latest stories and economic reports from local and foreign fronts. Catch live, breaking and latest news.
Bos, kita kena hantar wang tak tuntut ke Jabatan Akauntan Negara. Ini borangnya, Bos.
Berapa banyak kita akan serahkan tahun ni?
Ini ceknya, Bos. Oh ya, Juradi pun ada dengan kita supaya buat serahan sebelum 31 Mac setiap tahun.
Pihak-pihak yang perlu membuat serahan wang adalah syarikat-syarikat, pertubuhan dan koperasi, badan berkanun dan firma. Serahan perlu dibuat sebelum 31 Mac.
Welcome back to The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. Currently joining me in the studio is Neela Mehan, who's a political analyst from UPM. He's also a leadership consultant, and he's joining us today to talk about the problems within MIC. I remember back in 2 years ago, we spoke about the general elections. He was here, and we spoke extensively about what was happening back then. Now he's back again to talk about problems within MIC. Of course, we're all talking about these problems, and we want to see MIC through these problems. We want to make sure that they get back on the straight and narrow. And of course, there is apparently a vision, which is 2020. And how is this helping Barisan Nasional? They need to be working together, apparently.
Precisely. You see, what's happening in MIC it's rather sad, because in the 12th general elections, 2008, the emergence of Hindraf actually swept across and made MIC redundant in many sorts. Then the Prime Minister, in many ways, he took upon helping Indians on a personal note by engaging individuals as well as the NGOs. Interesting scenario says that the Indians started to support Barisan Nasional in 2013 general election. Somehow they supported Barisan Nasional, but that does not mean they supported MIC. So MIC was losing what you call the interest of the society. Dato' Sri S. Samiulu, yesterday he mentioned that if the problem is not solved, the members may leave the party, and the party may become irrelevant. I think that is a very strong message.
Just thinking out loud here, do you see PPP playing a role in this? Because Tan Sri Kevia has flat out said right here on the seat that they're rebranding themselves to support the Indians. So there's PPP, MIC, there's...
Well, there is a real opportunity for PPP now to step up and claiming that leadership positions, championing the Indian. But whether their constitution allows that, because PPP being a multiracial party. And MIC now is not only just losing out, I think many NGOs already stepping in, fulfilling the role that is being played by MIC, and they are in a dire strait right now, that they may become redundant soon if they don't fix it now.
Right, so fixing it is the thing that we want to talk about now. Fixing it, in your opinion, as a political analyst, how can the fixing or the healing begin?
Okay,
healing.
It was actually a rather straightforward solutions when Dato' Sri S. Palanivel supposed to leave in 2016 and Dato' Subra to take over, and Dato' Saravanan to become the deputy president. There was some kind of arrangement then, but looks like the healing is going to take much longer, because Dato' Saravanan has announced, or rather indicated, that he may go for the presidency, and Dr. Subra yet to mention anything about it, but he did questions. Or rather, he did mention that many are questioning him why there is a contest for the top two posts when the top two posts was not in question. Right? So leave that top two posts alone. Go for that vice president's election. So it looks like Dr. Subra also have to re-strategize himself, whether he's going to for deputy president when the election is called, or he wanted to go for the presidency. If he's going for the presidency, and if Dr. Saravanan is going for presidency,
move one step up,
and exactly, and the way that I'm looking at it, if Dr. Saravanan and Dr. Subra is going for it, it is a good news for Palani, because the vote may split between these two, because Dr. Palani's vote may remain the same. So it's kind of interesting. As they said, there is no permanent enemies or permanent friends in politics, and we're going to see that thing is going to happen again.
I see a lot of effort being put into bringing the young in and making them a part of MIC. The last time I spoke to someone, it was about an ongoing concert that they have. They move from town to town doing concerts, getting getting feedback from the younger generation. Now, shouldn't they be one of the main focus with regards to what's happening? To find out what's happening on the ground. What do they want? Because inevitably these people are going to be taking over.
You see, interesting is that whether this younger generation, whether they see hope in that party, because it simply put, you cannot motivate somebody today if he or she is not seeing hope tomorrow. So they wanted to know whether remaining in that party is going to do any good for them. Right now they don't see much of it, because the political, the leadership tussle that is happening out there it looks like for individual purpose rather than the community concern. So the youth are not giving much opportunities to play the role, and I also believe that they are also losing interest to step up, because there is not much waiting for them.
So when they lose interest, what can happen? Who can take this opportunity to lure them in? Because they're always, the young people are always looking towards someone to lead them forward. And
that's absolutely the question now, because obviously being a leader, number one responsibility of a leader is to develop more leaders, or to develop better leaders than you are. Right now, the lack of successions leadership pipeline clearly shows that MIC failed to do so. There is a huge gap between those who are going to retire at the national level, at the state level, at the division level, at the branch level. Clearly shows not much has been done in the past to groom the young leaders to take over. That's going to be the real big issue right now.
I think what we need to ascertain now, now that we've discussed these issues, is leadership in general. We all keep talking about leadership. Everyone's talking about facilitation work for leadership, so on and so forth. But basically, at the heart of it all, what is a leader? What should we need to see in a leader? And maybe you can walk us through this.
Being a leader in this context, the political context, the right type of leadership, that will be the transformational leadership.
Right.
Transformational leadership is basically is about a leader who see there is a right reason to bring about change. Because if a leader is not making any changes, you do not need a leader, you need a manager. So you need a leader. He wanted to change the scenario from what we are to what we should be or what we could be. So that's what the leader is supposed to bring the changes.
So it needs to be an upward move.
Precisely. That's why transformational leaders are called as the visionary leaders. That's what Tun Mahathir did way back in 1990. He developed that Vision 2020 way forward, 30 years ahead of his time. So he said that this is where we are going. MIC is like of that kind of vision where the party is leading. So when a leader developed a vision, the next challenge is to communicate that vision to the followers and make them own it. So now you go around and ask any MIC members where the party is heading, no one actually can say. John C. Maxwell, probably the world #1 leadership guru, he clearly says that followers follow the leader who knows where he is going. So that means he is very firm with the direction that he is taking. Then he has communicated that with the followers. So the lack of direction will always make that followers wanting. So transformational leader is someone that has developed that vision, communicated that vision, and telling them this is the reason why we are going towards that one. Get them on board, make them own that vision, take them together as a team. That is the ultimate goal of leadership.
And when you talk about taking them on board and teaching them how to communicate, communicating your vision is very important, and likewise your followers or people who see your vision need to be able to communicate that vision. Now when we talk about communication, when you speak to a lot of people about what's happening within the Indian community, of course most of us have learned how to speak English. We speak Bahasa Melayu or Bahasa Malaysia, call it whatever you may. We've all learned these languages. Of course we understand our mother tongue, or we speak the Tamil language, or if you're Indian, you probably speak Punjabi or Hindi or whatever. So now the bigger question is, with the Indians or Tamils being the minority in Malaysia, or Indians being the minority in Malaysia, another thing is the education for these people. Education, and by that I mean being able to communicate in languages that they need to communicate in Bahasa Malaysia, and also in English in order to move forward.
Exactly.
So finding a balance in that, have we seen that happen?
See, the education is probably the most appropriate way for the upliftment of the society. There is no better way of doing that. The government has got the newly launched education blueprint up to the year of 2025, as well as the MIC is fighting for that one. But again, the the issue of language is a national issue, whether the standard of English, whether up to the level what it's supposed to be. When a country like Vietnam and also Thailand, in general, they can do better in English than Malaysia. There is an issue. It's not about Indian alone.
Right. I mean, English is definitely, there's some pressing issues with regards to English, and of course it's a learning curve. We learn as we move along. But with the national language, it's interesting that I'm just going to digress from what we're talking about to talk about certain areas within Kuala Lumpur. Saying if you go to a place like Damansara Perdana, it's very mixed. You've got people from Nigeria, you've got people from Korea,
That's right.
You've got people from all over the world, you've got people from China and India who live there, like programmers, and you've got a mixed young bunch. And even if I walk in Damansara Perdana, people don't know if I'm Middle Eastern or Indian, or I come from some African country.
Exactly.
People don't know this until they ask me. When they speak to me, and the only way for me to communicate that I'm a Malaysian is when I speak in Bahasa. And it is very important at this point that to define us as a people, language is very important. So with the Indian community, that there are, of course, problems with education. But don't you think language is also important, or acquiring a proper standard in the national language?
I would agree. I would agree with you, because
with leadership too.
It's so sad when Bangladeshi national that been here for only about couple of months or years can speak better Bahasa than some of their locals who've been here for their whole life. So is that a what do you call issue with the people, or is that with the issue with the system? I think necessity is mother of all invention. I mean, there is a pressing need for him to learn that language, so he's learning. As far as the MIC is concerned, they're always focusing on these two T to remain relevant, the Tamil school and the temples. Well, they can always do so. I support that mission as well. But as you said, what about the Bahasa, the mastering of that Bahasa, mastering of the English itself? I think we should actually focus beyond just that Tamil schools. We should be focusing on the education as a whole for the Indian community to rising up.
So who within MIC should be doing this? We'll take another break and we'll come back and find out more about leadership qualities. Of course, we're talking all this conversation started from the problems within MIC, and there's also a need for us now to look at leadership and what we need to see in leaders. Stay with us right here at The Nation. This is Bernama TV's The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam.
Amalkan nilai-nilai murni. Ia boleh membawa manfaat dan menjadi teladan untuk semua. Ingat, ada yang melihat. Semarakkan nilai-nilai murni setiap masa.
Masa mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Hello and welcome back to The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam. We're currently speaking to Neela Megan, who's a political analyst. He's also a leadership consultant. He, of course, is a political analyst for UPM, and he does a lot of corporate training with leadership training involved, which he has been involved in for a very, very long time. Well, coming back to what we're talking about MIC leadership. Of course, when we talk about leadership, there's not only a problem within MIC. If you look at most political parties now, they all seem to be having the same problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, and to sum this up, to leadership, things we need to understand about leadership, because we see so many problems within Malaysia with regards to leadership within many parties, and with that, now what kind of information can you give us which will be useful to us or beneficial to us as Malaysians about knowing these qualities or leadership qualities?
Warren Bennis, one of the renowned leadership guru, he differentiated the leadership and management. He was saying that managers doing the things right and leaders are the one who do the right things. I think it is expected of the leader to do the right things. In Tirukkural, one of the noble script of Indians, it's clearly mentioned that it is okay for a leader to make mistake, but it is not okay for a leader not to do the right thing when he was in that position.
Right.
Failing to do the right thing is more criminal than doing.
But you
mistake.
need to define what the leader needs to define what is right and wrong.
Precisely, that's what the leadership abilities are concerned. There was a long-standing leadership research done by Posner and Kossers. The book itself calls Leadership Challenges, and the research is ongoing for 25 years. And they did research all around the world, and they asked what are the qualities that the followers expect from the leaders. And there are almost 35 qualities that they have listed. Interestingly, for the last 25 years, there are 4 qualities remains as the top 4 in that survey. Right. So they were saying that number 1 qualities that people look for in that their leader is honesty and integrity. They come together. So that means a leader who speak and do the same thing.
Right.
And people want to know.
Honesty and integrity.
Integrity come together. And that is number 1. Number 2 quality that people look for is the vision. People want to know, where are you taking us? Tell us where are you going? Tell us what we supposed to do with that thing. Number 3, competence, what they call the skill that people are looking for, the competent of managing. What is the structure that you're putting in place, and how you are taking that party, how you are taking the organization moving forward. And number 4 is inspiring. People want to be inspired by their leader. People want to hear his story. People want to hear his struggle. People want to hear his plans, and people want to buy into that dream.
Right.
And these are the top 4. So without this, there is going to be a huge struggle to get your followers and forcing them to come on board with you.
Right. I've always been a man who's learned things from TV or through radio, and the visuals or the images you see on TV, especially when a leader meets the people, for me, how he interacts with people or how he talks to a person is very important. I can tell the amount, how much engaged the person is or how involved the person is, just by a person shaking a hand.
Yeah, precisely.
Or by just talking to someone.
Eye contact.
Eye contact is very important. If you're just shaking someone's hand like that,
then you know.
You basically know that he's there. It's all just perfunctory. I'm here to just do the pleasantries and move on. But a good leader for me would be someone who would be and it'll be time consuming, but it'll be meaningful for everyone you get in contact with. Now, off the airwaves, I asked him a very simple question. Of course, we digressed in this conversation. We were talking about the national language, saying if I were the leader of radio broadcasters within Germany, or rather Malaysian broadcasters within Germany, saying all of us are Malaysians, or just say all the Indians we are in a country like Germany, I'm a leader of all the Indians. What language should I be good at? Should I be good at, of course I should be able to speak my mother tongue, but nevertheless I should be able to speak in the German language to be able to convey the message of my people to the governors of the country,
issues,
or the people who are running the country. So these are things we need to look at, because now we see Malaysia, we always thought of it as Indian, Chinese, Sabahan, Sarawakians. Now it's becoming, even bigger, with many other races coming in and living in Malaysia and making Malaysia their home. And in time we'll need to get used to this. So leadership and defining who you are and what you are and moving forward, I think is very important. And in closing, how would you sum this up for us?
I think if you want to become an effective leader, you need to have a willing followers. That means people follow you almost blindly because they trust you, they have a faith in you, they believe in you. So how could you actually create that kind of people who's going to follow whatever that you're doing?
Right.
They have to buy into your personality, they have to buy into your integrity. So without that, it's going to be quite issue.
Right. And I always like what the Minister of Communications, Dato Sri Shabri, he always talks about this. If you have problems, debate it. Recently there was a problem. He says, why don't you come and debate this? And he was wanting to give RTM as a platform to do it. And I think that's a fair way forward.
Exactly.
If you can't debate your issues or talk about it, you'll never be able to move forward. And do you think there's any truth to it?
I think openness to talking about it, there is no problem cannot be solved by communicating, by talking about it. But the issue is that whether they are sincere. The Indian community at large is asking that one question. And I can actually look at their issues into that roots of, again I'm quoting Tirukkural, because it's clearly mentioned there, a bad advisor to a king is equivalent to 7 billion enemies. So that means now the question is, who is advising these people when they are going to that issue? I think we have got enough guidance. Rudi Giuliani showed the world how he actually
it was an amazing mayor.
When there was uncertainty. I think recently Tan Sri Tony Fernandes also showed to the world how to manage a crisis, by communications and compassions, as well as the commitment. So I think we have got enough literatures, enough guidance up there to solve the current problem.
We just need to look at it and absorb some of the great ideas that we have out there. Well, with that, on that note, we'd like to end with a little quote. Of course, it's a quote by a great person, not me, of course. A good leader can engage in a debate frankly and thoroughly, knowing at the end that he and the other side must be closer and thus emerge strong. You don't have that idea when you're arrogant, superficial, and uninformed. That was said by Nelson Mandela. On that note, thank you so much, Neela Mehan. It was a pleasure speaking to Mehan right here at The Nation. We hope to have him back soon to talk about other issues. Thank you very much for joining us at The Nation. We'll be back tomorrow with more right here on Bernama TV.